like to share an amazing story with you. There's a fellow on a plane going to Houston, and his name is Friedman. And the stewardess says, "Mr. Friedman, I have a kosher meal for you." I said, "Sure." The guy has been away for 2 weeks, and he was missing his wife's food, and he's not looking forward to a kosher meal on a plane, but you do what you do. What are you going to do? So then he went to wash his hands in the back, and the guy sitting next to him was digging into a nice tray piece of steak. Yeah, and he's like, look at what I have to eat, double wrap, probably was cooked a year ago. You know what I'm saying? And he notices that the guy's name is Weinstein. So he says to himself, should I tell the guy, he's Jewish probably, he can order a kosher meal. So he says, "Mr. Weinstein, I see you're Jewish." He says, "Yeah. They offer kosher meals on the plane." "Not interested. Leave me alone." "No, I don't eat anything kosher." "What do you mean?" He says, "You have to understand, whatever God says to do, I do the opposite. The opposite. If it's to eat kosher, I eat treif. I don't keep Shabbos, I don't do anything." "I don't understand." He said, "What's going on?" He said, "You really want to know? Okay, I'll tell you." He could tell that the guy had an accent from Eastern Europe. And he starts to tell him, "I kept everything until my son. Once I lost my son, that's it." So he says to him, "What's the story?" And he tells him, "I was in Auschwitz. And we knew that the war was almost over. It was only a few weeks left for liberation. It was me, my wife, and my son, Kasriel Menachem. And I held on to him tight. One day, the Gestapo, rather the German Nazi soldiers came around and he said, 'Follow us.' And they took us to an area that was clear in the forest. And my son was gripping my hand so tight, I thought I was going to cut off the circulation. And then made us stand there, and they started shooting. And there was people dying everywhere. I survived. But I never saw my son ever again. But my son was the light of my life. And after that I said, that's it. It's enough. No more Judaism for me." So there you have it. Brushing away the tears as he's crying. God said I had to have children. I had children. And he was taken away from me. So now I want to tell you something. Whatever God tells me to do, I do the exact opposite. If he says keep kosher, I eat treif. If he says honor the Shabbos, I drive my car. Whatever he says, I will do the opposite. So he says to himself, what can you do? What do you tell someone like that? Nothing. So the airplane arrives in Houston. They say farewell to each other. 4 years later, this rabbi, he had gone to Houston for a kiruv mission, decided to take his family to Eretz Yisrael to show his wife and children what Israel was like. He was there in yeshiva. And we traveled around the country. We went to Tzfat, we went to Meron, we went to Amuka, all the great places. I took them all over the place. I took them to Bnei Brak to see the famous Panovich Yeshiva, which has this gorgeous Heichal, which is pure gold. You got to see it, it's a sight to see. And then finally, it was time for Yom Kippur. We spent Rosh Hashanah there, Yom Kippur. There's no words to describe the impact of Yom Kippur in Yerushalayim. Not a person in the street. We're all davening. Finally, it's Musaf. We're told you have a 15-minute break. So we want to get some fresh air. And there I was, walking down Me'ah Sha'arim Street with not a soul to be seen, in the direction of Malchei Yisrael. Malchei Yisrael is in Geula, if you've been to Israel. It's where they have all the stores. About 50 feet away, I see someone doing something amazing, not normal, in Me'ah Sha'arim, sitting on a bench, smoking on Yom Kippur. As I approached him, I recognized him. Mr. Weinstein, you remember me? I'm Rabbi Gross, we were on the plane together. Yeah, how are you? And we start schmoozing, and we sit, and we talk. I told him, you're the guy that ate the treif meat, remember? He says, yeah. and we're talking about life. You know, today's Yom Kippur, and we're about to say Yizkor for all the dead souls. I know you don't believe it, but please, just once, come with me to my shul, where I'm davening, and we'll say Al Kilmai Rachamim for your son, for the deceased. You should know that I haven't been in a shul, he tells him, for about 50 years. I don't even remember what one looks like. Don't worry, I'll hold your hand. We'll go in together. We walked along the quiet streets, and a few people who passed us said hello. We held each other's arms. We approached the shul, we went inside, and I asked the chazan if you could do a special Kelmali Rachman at the end of the laning for my friend's son, my old friend's son, who had died al Kiddush Hashem. The chazan said, yes, I'll do it. Please tell me his name. Yes, my son's name was Kisir Menachem ben Yecheskel Shraga. The chazan's face turned white. Beads of sweat came down his forehead. And he fainted. They had to bring water to revive him. He looks at the old man and he says, Tati! It was his son.
Wow.
What happened? Mommy stood in front of the Nazi officers and took the bullets and saved my life. They had been disconnected close to 45 years. And that began that man's path back to tshuva. Yom Kippur teaches us there's a possibility for everything. He's a religious man today.